All right, so please, if you can see my screen, just notify me on the chat box so I'll know you can see my screen. Can you see my screen, guys? Okay, so I'll proceed. In our last class, I introduced you guys to HTML boilerplate. So let me just recap. I said HTML boilerplate is the starting code for any website you are trying to build. Like, it's the first thing you have to do, because there is a structure for an HTML document, starting from the HTML tag to the head tag to the body tag, and also the attributes as well. So in case you didn't watch the previous class, make sure you watch them, because I won't be going back to teach what I already taught before. So ensure you watch the class. Then also, I also introduced different heading elements, like ranging from H1 to H6. And I said they have different functions, H1 being the level 1 header, H2 being the level 2, all the way down to H6. There's nothing like H7. It ranges from H1 to H6. And also, we also did some basic work. So I think I'll launch. Yeah, so this was the previous, in our previous class, this was what we did. I also introduced the concept of doc type declaration. I said this is the first code you have to include on your web page. The doctype.html element, it simply tells the browser that I'm working with HTML5. In this case, everything I'm going to do is strictly HTML5, because HTML5 is the recent and the latest version of HTML. Other versions before HTML5 include XHTML, HTML4, and the rest. So since you are starting out, and there have been a lot of changes to HTML. So in this case, HTML5 makes your life easier. It simplifies the syntax and the code you are supposed to write compared to HTML4. And there have been a lot of changes as well. So I'll recall that I explained everything concerning the HTML, like your starting code has to include HTML, and difference between an opening tag and also a closing tag. And I said the head element contains information that your browser used to render your web page, like the language, for instance, the character set, in this case, UTF-8, then the content, the width of the website. In this case, I'm using device width with an initial scale of 1. I explained everything in our last class. And also the title. I said if you go to a web page, for instance, and let me show you something. In this case, for example, now this is FreeCodeCamp website, and on this, if you follow my cursor, you see responsive web design. You understand? So this is what you specify in the title element of your website. So in this case now, the content, what I'm writing, in this case, 300 DOC, which stands for 300 days of code. Anything that I impute between the title, the opening and the closing title tag, is what is being displayed on the browser tab. So I've already explained all this thing before in the previous class. I just want to refresh your memory on it. And also, we touched on H1 to H6. I said H1 being level 1, H2 level 2, H3 level 3, all the way down to H6. And when you load this web page, I'm going to load this web page so you guys will see how it looks like. So when you load this web page, you can see H1 here, my first web page, H2, H3, H4, H5, H. As you can see, as the hierarchy reduces, the font size reduces. So most times when you are trying to, like, when you are writing a web page, the title usually goes with H1. So usually use H1 for level 1 heading, which is the title. They're followed by H2. So you just have to use H1 to H6. You just have to know when to use them just to make your website readable. If I should go to this website, for instance, you notice the font size they use here for these courses is different from the font size they use for this basic HTML and HTML5. Then also, ranging from this HTML5 down to this item, the font size is different. So they made use of H1 all the way down to H6. And also, in today's class, I'll be introducing the paragraph tag, the paragraph element, what it's being used for. So I just want to like refresh your memory. So today, we are not going to be doing much. I just want to introduce you guys to the paragraph element. Then I'll tell you the section you are going to be doing on the Free Code Camp website. So just in case you've not opened an account on the Free Code Camp website, make sure you do that, because after this class, I'm going to give you guys assignment on what to do, and we'll discuss on it in our next class, which is on Friday. So let's proceed for today's class. So I'm just going to delete all the way from H2 to H6. Let me remove this here, and I'll save it. And don't forget, I said there are also elements known as self-enclosing elements. For example, now the line break, the H arrow, the B arrow tag. So let me do something. So I'll move on to the next line, and you need to define your tag. Most tags start with an opening angle bracket and also a closing angle bracket. So what we'll do in this case now, I just want to show you what we call the horizontal rule. It's strictly add a rule to your web page. So if I should add H arrow stands for horizontal rule. And let me save this web page right now. Then I'll go back to my web browser and let me reload this page. Can you guys see this particular line? That's the rule here. So it's just like using a meter rule to section your web page. So I just want to introduce you guys to different elements. So there's also what is known as attributes. Attributes are what you add to your tag just to give it extra functionality. For instance, now you can see the line for the horizontal rule. In this case, it is very thin. Yeah. So I would want to make the line thicker. So we'll make use of what we know as HTML attributes. So there are different attributes. So one of the attributes for the horizontal rule is, so in this case now, I'll add what we call size, S-I-Z-E, and the size will now be equal to, don't forget, the value of the size attribute. We always go in quotes, in quotation. So in this case, let me just give you 3 pixels. I'll save this. Then I'll go back to my web page here and let me reload. So, sorry about that. Let me just make this up. I just want to illustrate to you guys how it works. Let me close this and let me open it again. You right click on it, and in this case, you are opening it with Sublime Text. I said you could use Visual Studio Code, and you could also use Sublime Text, any text editor of your choice. So the size here in the horizontal rule elements, we declared size equals to 6. So I'll save this page. So all I just have to do is that you could save your web page in any location. You could save it on your desktop. But in this case, I created a folder called web development for the purpose of this class. So I'll double click on it. And as you can see, you notice that in this case now, it is now thicker. Can you notice that? I don't know if you can see it. You see let me just make this page bigger. Can you see now? Compared to if I make this like, let me make it 1 or 2. Can you see the difference? So most times you have to adjust it to suit what you want, to suit your desired taste, you understand? So if I should go to this website, for instance, now, let me just look for where they applied the horizontal rule. Something like this, but this is not a rule, but it's just to section your web page for you to know. For example, now you could be using a table, for instance, and tables are made up of rows and columns, for instance. So you could also make use of the horizontal rule. Horizontal rule is just to section your web page, and also know when to use a horizontal rule and know when not to use it. So I just want to introduce you guys so that you know the things that you can do with HTML and the possibility of it as well. So that's one of the first HTML element I'm going to be introducing as well. So aside that, I'll introduce you guys to the paragraph element. If you should take a look at this website, for instance, now, this right up, you could see that this particular heading, basic CSS, is different from the font size. In this case, this is bold, but in this case, from the CSS here to this style with CSS and this full stop, you notice that the font size are different. And why this is bolded, this is not bolded. You understand? So you just like when I give you a textbook, for instance, and you see that the heading, the font for the heading is different from the main paragraph. You could use different font size, being font size 12, 13, 14, depending on what you want to do. So if you want to add a write-up to your website, you make use of the paragraph tag. In this case, it is being identified using the P element, the P tag. So what you do now, so don't forget the opening tag, a left angle bracket and a right angle bracket. In this case, since you are making use of the paragraph tag, you represent the paragraph tag using the P element. So you add a P to it. And don't forget, the paragraph element is not a self-enclosing tag. It means that it has an opening tag and also a closing tag. So the difference between, and also don't forget, the difference between an opening tag and a closing tag is that for the closing tag, you have a / after the opening angle bracket. So the difference, just take note of the difference. In this case, you have the P element here inside the opening, the left and the right angle bracket. And also there's also, for the closing tag, you have a P element inside the opening and the closing angle bracket. But the only difference is that for the P element, for the closing tag, you have the / after the opening angle bracket. So let me just zoom in so that you see. Can you see these guys? So the difference between this and this is this / here. That's the difference. So anything that you want to display inside the web page, it will be in between here. So in between the opening P element and the closing P element, that's where you add your write-up. So let me reduce the size of this. So let's just go to this website, for instance, now, and let's copy everything here. So I'll just copy it and come back and paste it here. So you could see, let me just paste it here. So don't forget, for you to display, you have to save. So Control S, then let's go back to this website here. So this is our web page. And let me refresh. Can you see what we just did now? So if, for instance, now I could say, this is my paragraph and this is my heading. Don't forget, this heading can be anything. I'm just using the text, my first web page, just to illustrate the difference. Instead of using H1, you could as well use H2. Just know that the H1 or the H2 is just to distinguish and to structure your web page. So I could call this H2, and yeah, I'll call this H2 and I'll save it. I just need to come back to this place and reload. As you can see now, the font size are reduced as well. You understand? So you also notice here that this website, this web page, the content here is not structured. You understand? For instance, now you want to say, after this HTML full stop, I want this next character, which is with CSS, to start from the next line. That's when you have to use what we know as a line break. That's when you use this BRO tag. So this BRO tag is a self-enclosing tag. It doesn't need a closing tag. So I could just add a line break here. So what I'll do now is open and close it and put the B here, BRO here. So it means that starting from this with CSS, you can control the color. It will start from a new line. You understand? So what I'll just have to do now is to save this work. And when I save it, I'll go back to my web page and I'll reload this web page. Just note it, before I reload it, from this with CSS, you can control the color. It's going to start from a new line. So once I reload now, you can see now with CSS, you can control. I'm just like introducing these concepts so that you know what those various elements, what they do, you understand? So don't forget, you use H1 to H6, just their headings, but those headings, they have different level. H1 being the biggest, which is level 1, H2, which is following H1, then H3, H4, H5, all the way to H6. Then when you want to write the structure, the content of your web page, in this case, maybe you don't want to write after defining the heading, then you want to write the actual content of your web page. That's when you use the P tag. P there stands for paragraph. So don't forget. And a paragraph tag is not self-enclosing. It means that it has an opening paragraph tag in this P here. Let me zoom it for you guys. This P here, the opening paragraph tag, and also the closing paragraph tag here. And I said the difference between the opening and the closing paragraph tag is that the closing paragraph tag has a forward slash after this opening angle bracket. And I said, if you want to like section your paragraph element properly, like you want different content to begin from a new line. Anytime you want a content to begin in a new line, all you have to do is to use the line break tag, so which is this BRO. And the line break tag doesn't require a closing tag. Like what I mean is that, let me just do this. I'll add it here. It is totally wrong for you to have, wrong for you to have okay, autocomplete is completing it. But what I'm just trying to say is that nothing like this, it is not possible. You don't need it. It is not necessary. Once you use this BRO tag, the browser automatically knows that it automatically structure your web page. But what you're telling the browser to do is that I want to begin a new line. So this is not correct. So it is not correct. That's why my text editor is giving me the correct code or the correct format. So I'll just delete this. So anytime you see a BRO tag here, know that after the BRO element, the next content that is going to show, it is starting from a new line. So this is a new line. From this with CSS, you can control, it starts from a new line. Also, from here also, you can see the BRO element is starting a new line also. And everything was inside the paragraph tag from this opening P tag here, this one here, and this closing P tag here. So I'll save this and I'll use the font size. So don't forget. Okay, so I hope you are clear on this. So I just wanted to introduce the paragraph element and the line break element for you. So after today's class, just to get your hands dirty and to practice all you've learned so far from the beginning of the web development class till date, all you have to do, in case you've not opened an account, go to Free Code Camp, ensure you do that. Go to Free Code Camp, register and verify your account. Then this is what you do for me. So from what we've taught so far, you'll be able to attempt, and if possible, you'll be able to complete this individual task. So what you do after this class, finish this section, this say hello to HTML elements, finish also the headline with H2 elements, then also inform with paragraph elements, fill in the blank with placeholder text, uncomment HTML and comment out HTML, delete HTML. So all you just have to do, starting from here, from this first one all the way down to delete HTML element, make sure you complete it. It's just a refresher and it will enable you to practice all I've taught you from the beginning of the class till today. You understand? So make sure you do that, because if you want to, for those that are interested in getting a certificate, you have to finish all these particular individual tasks for you to get a certificate for the responsive web design section. Then before the 300 days of code will elapse, we are also going to touch on JavaScript, front-end libraries, and the rest. But just to show, like to give, maybe if you want to present a certificate to some persons, and for having a proof that you actually did or you learned those concepts, your certificate sometimes it sometimes help. You understand? So make sure you do those sections in which I highlighted. So make sure you do them. So this highlighted section, this say hello to HTML elements, the headline with H2 elements, all the way down to delete HTML elements. If you've been following the class I've taught from the beginning of the class till date, all these particular tasks, they are very easy. It's something that you can do. You can finish everything within 1 hour or even less. So make sure you do them. So that will be all for today's class. And I'm going to unmute you guys. So in case you have any question you want to ask me, so you could ask me. And if you also have clarification, you could. I'll be glad and I'll be happy to answer your questions as well. So if you have any question, please unmute yourself and ask me the question. So if there's any question, please unmute yourself and ask me. So I'll do the normal routine. In a situation whereby nobody wants to ask, I'll pick some persons at random and I'm going to ask you a question based on what we've discussed so far. So first person here, starting from Benny, please unmute yourself. Benny, if you are here with us, please unmute yourself. I can't hear you. Please unmute yourself and speak up.
Hello, good evening, sir.
Good evening. How are you doing?
I'm fine, sir.
So far from what we've discussed so far, do you have any question or do you need further clarification?
Oh, yes, I have a question.
Okay.
Okay, I don't know if you can explain the attributes over again.
Okay. I said attributes, they give extra functionality to your HTML elements. For instance, let me use this as a case study. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Let me remove this size attribute. By default, this HRO, you know what the function of HRO element does, right? Horizontal rule. It's like adding a rule to your web page. By default, if I should save this document, then I go back to my web page without adding any attributes. Let me just reload. You see that the rule here, you can see this line here. It is very thin. Can you see? But there are some instances whereby I want this particular line to be thicker. I want it to be bold. I want it to the width to increase compared to the default size. That's when you add attributes. So attribute is just like adding extra functionality, you understand, to your web page. And different elements, for instance, they have different attributes. If you followed from our previous class, see this meta element, for instance, this charset, CHARSET, is an attribute. This name also is an attribute. In this case, there are different attributes with different functions. So in this case here now, character set, it's an attribute name. Then the value for this character set attribute is UTF-8. So by default, if I didn't add all these particular attributes to this web page, sometimes the web page might not be able to render what I'm giving it correctly. So attribute is like adding extra functionality. So let me just stick with this HRO now. So by default, the horizontal rule for this web page, it is very thin. Then if I want to specify that, okay, I want the horizontal rule to be thicker, the line should be bold, I can now add an attribute to this horizontal rule. And I'll show you a place whereby you could get all the attributes for different HTML elements. So in this case now, one of the attributes for the horizontal rule is size. So the size here now, I could define what would be the size of this horizontal rule. I could make the size, for example, now let me make the size, 10. And what I'll do now, I'll save this web page. So once I save the web page, don't forget, anytime you modify your source code, always save so that when you reload it, it's going to update itself. So I'll save it here now. Recall, before this, don't assume there was nothing like size attributes here. It was like this before. There was nothing here. But I want the horizontal rule to be thicker. I want the rule, the thickness of the rule to be more. So I'll use an attribute known as size. So I'll just add the size attributes here. Then also I'll specify the value for the size. What will be the size? The size can take any value. The size can be 2, can be 3, can be 4, it can be 5, depending on your taste and what you want. So for this purpose, I just want to use 10 so that you understand what I'm trying to say. But it can be any value. It's not the most that it must be 10. So let me just add 10 to it. Then I'll save it. Then I'll go back to this web page here and let me reload. What can you notice here? Can you see that the thickness here it's more compared to if I had used one. There are different attributes for the horizontal row, but I just want to introduce it to you so that you know that you can actually tweak and modify your web page. You understand? So that's what attributes, what they do. So attribute, they add extra functionality to your HTML elements. So that's what attribute is. So for example, now I could say, okay, your name is Benny. I could say, what are the attributes of Benny? For instance, now let me say, okay, let me assume you are tall. She's tall. She's dark in complexion. She has long hair, for instance. Those are your attributes, like the things I could use to describe you. You understand? So those are the function of attributes. So as time goes on, I'm going to be introducing more attributes to your HTML element. But for the sake of this class, which is an introductory class, since we are still starting and we are also at the foundation stage, I don't want to go too deep, but with time, I'm going to be introducing different concepts as we progress with the class. So I hope I've been able to explain what attributes they do for you on when working with HTML documents. Hope I'm clear on that.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay. So is there another question? Is there another person that needs clarification on what we discussed so far? Please speak up if you have any clarification or if you need any. Okay. Kingsley is in Waka. So please unmute yourself and speak up.
Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you doing?
I'm fine, and you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. My question is, I noticed that under the head, there is an indentation before you have the meta. And then also in the body, there is also an indentation with the things you wrote this. So I want to know if these indentations have an effect on what we are doing here.
Okay. The indentation, what he's trying to say is, okay, as you can see now, let me use this as a case study. You see this body here, this body element here now. Then instead of making it to be in the same line, this H2 element, I have to indent it. The essence, the reason why you indent is just for readability. The source, the compiler, in this case, Sublime Text or the text editor you are using, it doesn't care whether you indent or not. But for the sake of making your code human readable, because most times when you're writing an HTML document or HTML code, you are writing it not just for yourself alone. I can write a web page, or I could write a source code for a web page now, and I'll send it to somebody. I don't want to write a web page whereby when you see it, it just look like total jargons. It's just like it's just scattered. So the reason why I'm indenting is just to tell you, just to show the hierarchy. For instance, what I'm trying to do here is I'm telling you that from this H2 down to this P tag, I'm trying to tell you that it is inside the body element, you understand? So what I'm doing is that I'm telling you that from starting from here, this H2, all the way down to this P tag, it's inside this body element, you understand? Let me separate it so that you see. It's inside this body element, you understand? Why this meta tag, for instance, this first meta character set, the meta name and the title, they are inside the head element, you understand? So indentation is just to make your code beautiful in terms of your, like, when a human sees it. And also, when I take a glance at your source code, I already know that the H2, the H arrow, and the P, they are inside the body element. So it doesn't actually mean anything to your text editor, but just for the sake of readability, just to make sure that if somebody should take a glance at your source code, it is easier for them to understand what you are trying to do. You understand? That's the essence of indenting, just to make sure that your code is readable to the human being, not to the machine though, but just for human's sake and to make your code neat and fine also. So I hope I'm clear with that.
Yes, it's very clear. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we are already running out of time. I think due to the permission Zoom gave us, we have 8 minutes, 9 seconds left of the meeting. So I'll take one more question before we call it date for this class. So is there another person that have a question? Please, if you have, kindly unmute yourself and ask the question. So I'll assume there's no further questions. So just to recap, make sure if you don't have an account with Free Code Camp, make sure you go there, create an account with Free Code Camp, and watch all the previous videos I've recorded, all our previous class from day 1 to date. Make sure you watch them and attempt these exercises. This one here, this from this first one, this, all the way down to this delete HTML element. Make sure you do them and don't skip any part. And they are pretty straightforward and easy. If you've watched all our videos for our classes we've had so far, it's like a walk away, like walk over for you guys. It is very easy to do because we made mention of the H2 element and also paragraph, which I discussed today. So make sure you attempt it. And if you are able to finish everything from the beginning all the way down to responsive web design project, because there are going to be projects that we are going to do, I think 5 of them, build a tribute page, survey form, and the rest. So once you are able to finish all these projects by applying all the knowledge you've gained from all the classes you are going to hold, you actually get a certificate signed by also the founder of Free Code Camp, and also it's something that you'll be proud of and you'll be able to present it to prospective employers, or if you want to add it to your CV and your portfolio, that you have a certificate to certify that you have the skill set for responsive web design. So make sure you open an account. Just in case you don't, open an account and do all the exercise I asked you guys to do. And I'll see you in our next class, which is on Friday. So have a nice day and see you guys. And don't forget, don't overwork yourself, don't overstress yourself. 1 hour a day is all that you need. And little by little, by the end of the 300 days, you'll be glad that you started and you will no longer be a novice or a beginner. So see you guys on Friday. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.